Mr. Speaker, America recently blew through the $22 trillion debt mark with no end in sight. In January, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office warned Washington that America faces an unending string of trillion-dollar-a-year deficits beginning in FY 2022 and culminating in a $1.4 trillion deficit in FY 2028. The amount Congress spends each year on our discretionary budget that pays for the military, NASA, ATF, FBI, and almost every other federal agency. The cumulative effect of these deficits is a debt that explodes from $22 trillion today to $33 trillion in a decade. As debt goes up, so does debt service. The CBO warns, quote, in CBO's projections, outlays for net interest increased from $325 billion in 2018 to $383 billion in 2019, and more than double by 2029 to $928 billion a year, which is the rough equivalent of almost 50 NASA programs. Compounding matters, this past weekend, on March 2nd, the federal government hit the debt ceiling, which means the federal government's operational costs are being paid for via extraordinary measures, such as borrowing from the Social Security and Medicare Trust Fund. Washington's response to this financial firestorm is akin to that of Roman Emperor Nero, who fiddled as Rome burned. Rather than be proactive and work to prevent a debilitating national insolvency and bankruptcy, Congress emulates an ostrich that buries its head in the sand and denies lurking danger. In sum, America's sea of red ink and projected financial path is wholly and completely unsustainable. America must learn from financial reckless nations like Greece and Venezuela, and from Puerto Rico, an American territory that defaulted on its $70 billion debt. Unfortunately, the vast majority of American voters are oblivious to America's lurking financial dangers, in large part because of minimal national media coverage. American voters are too often seduced by debt junkie politicians who promise free stuff to get elected while knowing full well America can't pay for it. If American voters do not elect financially responsible officials to Washington, America will succumb to the same debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy that wreaks havoc in Greece and Puerto Rico, with one major difference. Unlike Greece, which has been bailed out 3 times by the European community, and unlike Puerto Rico, which may yet be bailed out by American taxpayers, there is no one who can or will bail out America. Instead, America will be more like Venezuela, whose annual inflation rate now exceeds 2 million%, where the International Monetary Fund reports there are, quote, widespread shortages of essential goods, including food, exacting a tragic toll, end quote, where grocery stores have rows and rows of empty shelves, and Venezuelans can't find food to feed their families. Worse yet, Venezuela's bankruptcy has made it one of the most violent countries in the world, with a chilling 82 homicides per 100,000 population, roughly 20 times worse than America's homicide rate. Caracas, Venezuela's capital, is the world's most violent city, with a war zone like 120 murders per 100,000 citizens. Mr. Speaker, America must learn from the financially irresponsible mistakes of others. As the adage says, we can either learn from history or we are doomed to repeat it. American voters must wake up and stop being seduced by the wily ways of debt junkie politicians who promise anything to get elected, who pretend to be Santa Claus when in fact they are the Grinch that stole America's future. Time is running out. The American people must start being good stewards of our republic and elect Washington officials who both understand the threat posed by defaults and deficit and debt and have the backbone to fix it. America's future depends on it. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.